Okay, guys, in 4 days, it's going to be your favorite sister's birthdays. Hello, welcome back. We're 4 days out.
I feel about birthdays this year. But hi, you look so pretty today.
It was hair washing day. Thank you.
Fun fact about Nichole, guys, when she washes her hair, she actually styles it on the first day.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you? That's the whole point of doing all that work. You're not going to style it.
Yeah,
And then it just sets the tone for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I don't really do my hair, so I can't really relate.
You guys, so something that I learned, this is for all the girlies out here, tip, when I got extensions, was there's this thing called a top wash. Have I talked about that yet?
No.
Okay. Top washing is life-changing. It is like a whore bath for your hair, and it comes in so handy, and I do it at least like once a week now. So you just take the top part of your hair, and you wash that only, because that's the part that shows, right? Life-changing. Life-changing. I think even when I don't have extensions, I'm going to continue top washing. But today was not a top washing day. Today was like a full wash day. And it takes so much longer now.
Yeah, I didn't know this until you told me, but apparently you can get mold with extensions.
You can get mold with extensions, so don't let your extensions air dry either. Oh, also,
Yeah.
Hey, Brianna, do you like the sweater that I'm wearing? I found it years ago.
I was gonna actually compliment it. I was like, oh, it's so cute. I love me a good simple black sweater.
Yeah, so did Brianna. And then so did I. Okay, what's going on? Real quick, we got to jump in. I think this is going to be a long one.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know. I'm on my moon cycle. I don't know what version of me you guys are about to get. So
she's such a downer. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm either spicy or I'm moody or I'm tired. I have my heating pad on. So yeah,
she's so extra with this like portable heating pad.
I can't, you know what I'm going to get? I'm going to get one for my neck, like a heating pad for my neck my shoulders as I'm typing for work because I'm on the computer all day. I know I was like, oh, I know Amazon will have one because Amazon has everything. So
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that.
Guys, check out our links in our show notes. It helps me out also. We always include the links to the cards, but if you purchase anything within that link, I think within 24 hours, I still get credit. So thank you to those who have purchased. I think I've made enough to buy a couple iced coffees. Amazon doesn't pay you much. It pays you pennies, but you know, we will take all the pennies we can get.
Yeah, we're working on receiving. Also, thank you to whoever took advantage of Nichole's affiliate link for SRM. So,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, and if we could be so kind as to ask for a review 5-star on Apple, that would be much appreciated because it gives us the motivation to continue to record the podcast.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah. What about you? How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm okay. We went to Beverly Hills yesterday for a doctor's appointment. It was supposed to be at like 9 a.m. on Saturday, so we got there really early, and it was a shit show. We've never been to this office. This lady was there, and she was like, this office is always a shit show. It's such a mess. But, you know, we always try to make a thing out of just anything we have to do. So we went out to breakfast after, and I texted you and Brianna, and I was like, we just spent $90 on breakfast. And it wasn't even like it was like I don't know, like I got avocado toast, you know, like it wasn't like a breakfast spot. It was kind of like a grab and go kind of coffee place. Anyway, $90. Their service was excellent though. I will have to say service was like spot on, and they did include part of that fee included the gratuity. So it was fine, but I was like, man, Beverly Hills, huh?
And in general, like I don't know if you caught my stories yesterday that I posted at time of recording, but I was like, the size of the food that you're paying
shrinkflation,
shrinkflation, yeah, it's
a real thing.
It's a real thing, but they're charging the same, if not more. And I'm like, I don't know how families are making it, and because if I recall, with our girlfriend that is a stock market day trader, she said something to the effect of like, and I hope I don't butcher this, but it's a discretionary item, the cost of food. Like it's like a basic need that doesn't get taken into account into, oh my gosh, I want to say GDP. So anyway, all this to say, there's really no true reflection of how much people are really spending to survive out there with respect to just paying for basic things like fucking food.
It's wild.
Anyways.
Times are changing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna stop being downers and well, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're not. Okay. So we weren't sure what we were going to talk about today. Gabby had one idea, but then I was like, "Ooh, let's talk about this instead." And so I'm sure if you guys have already seen the title, we are talking today about the subconscious mind because lately I have been so fascinated by it. And I guess it makes sense with what I do for work. And I'm surprised I didn't become more fascinated and interested in it sooner. But, all things in good time. So today we're going to be talking about what the subconscious mind is and just kind of like subconscious mind 101. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's a good title.
Maybe that'll be the title.
Yeah, seriously.
And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about it is because I think for you and I think I can speak for the both of us when I say that it's been a big part of our healing journey, especially lately. I would say for me, more so in the last year or so. It kind of really changed for me when I took the Manifestation Babe Academy. Manifestation Babe Academy, because it focuses so much on that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me. And at first, it was not a difficult concept to understand because, again, I've done this work, but I think it was just switching my mind from, like logical, analytical therapist brain to, I don't know, like whole brain. And yeah, so anyway, part of the reason that I think it's so important is because, again, we're seeing how much it affects us on a regular basis that I don't even think we realized, and I don't think very many people realize. So part of the reason that we're bringing it to attention is because we want you guys to see how big of a role it plays in everyday life, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I'm so glad that you're doing this work because I think it's so important with respect to healing, because in quite literally the last 10 readings that I've had, so last month and the month before that, so maybe more than 10, I've just noticed how many of my sitters that are in this world would really benefit from reprogramming their subconscious and their limiting beliefs, because limiting beliefs stem from the subconscious. And I don't know that this area of spirituality slash self-improvement gets as much attention as it deserves, because it is so effective.
Yeah, I don't think it does either. And if it does, maybe we're just not aware of the people that are doing it. So the people right off the top of my head that I can think of are obviously Manifestation Babe, Lacey over at To Be Magnetic, this other girl that I recently discovered. I discovered her a while ago, and I just kind of recently went back into kind of binging all of her stuff. Marley Rose Harris from the Money Mindset Manifestation podcast. And so those are the three off the top of my head that I can really think of that are focusing on it. Am I missing anybody?
Yes, Nichole Christine, aka Mom Wifey Therapist of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. Just watch out, ladies and gentlemen. She's coming for your jobs. Just kidding. Yeah, it's all love, but claim your space, Nichole. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but nobody else really, right? I mean, I'm sure there is. No. We just don't know of them. Actually, I'm lying. So Jenna Zoe, I never know how to say her name. Her cousin,
yeah,
is also in that space, and that was a really fascinating episode. So yeah, I mean, there are, but there's not a lot. I mean, there's like plenty of people, I think, doing a lot of the same kind of work. Yeah. And yeah, anyway, so I'm really interested in it. And you guys, when I say that I've been lit up lately, I have been so lit up. And I was thinking about it before we started recording, and I was like, what was the difference? And I think the difference is I kind of went into like little hermit Cancer mode for a little bit, for a few months.
For a minute, yeah.
Well, because I jumped from like program to program to program, and I was exhausted. When I finished Soul Reading Method, it was in July, and then I jumped into MBA like August. And then after MBA was over, I jumped into, was it intuitive mental
TBM.
health?
I thought it was TBM.
Oh, and then, sorry, into TBM and then into intuitive mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it all. I learned so much, but then I think I just got so exhausted. And so I've had these ideas of wanting to do things, and I just didn't really quite know what it was going to be. And then I was just so tired from doing all those programs.
And IVF.
Oh, and IVF. I've been a little bit busy, guys.
Yeah.
So I think even though we're still doing IVF, now the fact that I haven't had any of those programs going on, I had a chance to kind of come home and rest and recharge. After work, I feel like lit up and energized by these things. And so we're going to share maybe at the end what these things are. But yeah, it's been so fun. And I think it was just because I had that little time to retreat into my little shell and not do anything and not even really feel guilty about it. Like I think before I would feel so guilty about, oh, I need to be doing things and I need to be learning. I didn't really do any of that, and it felt so great. And I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's being satisfied. That's a signature theme as a Mani-Gen, right?
Totally.
Human design? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
So what is the subconscious mind, guys? And for those of you that already know this, I hope that maybe you still get something from this episode topic that we're talking about today. I hope that maybe if I say something in a way that it kind of clicks. I know sometimes, we can hear the same thing said 3 ways, like the same way by 3 different people, but on that third one, it kind of clicks for us and it's like, oh, that makes sense. So I don't know if it's the repetition or, just sometimes we resonate with people's energies and voices. So anyways, I hope you guys get something from this, even if it's something you already know.
Yeah.
But the subconscious mind is the 95% of our mind that we are unaware of. Okay, 95%. That's crazy. So one of the analogies that's used a lot is think of it as an iceberg. And so think of an iceberg and you see the tip of the iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg is the 5% of our brain that we are aware of. That's like our conscious mind. That's what helps us have conversations with people. That's what helps us do math. That's what helps us drive. That's what helps us kind of do all the things that we need to do in our daily life. If you look under the surface of that iceberg, all of like the water and everything else surrounding, so the rest of the iceberg and the water surrounding it is the other 95% of our brain. That is what controls everything else. So that's basically like life, right? So that's what controls our heart's beating. That's what controls the blood flowing through our veins. That's what controls our breathing. It controls everything else that we don't have to think of, right? We're not thinking of breathing when we're sleeping. We're sleeping. That's our subconscious mind working and doing all of that stuff behind the scenes. And it's not like a part of the brain. So, we have different parts of the brain. You have, oh my gosh, I'm not very well versed in the brain, but you have like your frontal lobe, your hippocampus, your prefrontal cortex, right? It's not like there's not a space in the brain that says subconscious mind. It just is, right? It kind of lives throughout it. So you're not going to find it like on a diagram the way you would if you were looking at a diagram of the brain. What are you thinking?
I was like, okay, so like if we're souls in a body, the subconscious would be the soul in the brain that is kind of likened to the body.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how my brain processed that just now.
Yeah. And you got really excited. I was like,
yeah, I was like, oh yeah, well, because it's just kind of there, and it feels like it's very fragile and sensitive.
Yeah. And so it's said that the subconscious mind is working from the ages of like 0 to 7, but it can be kind of, I've heard different numbers, 0 to 7, 0 to 12. I think it's kind of all the time, to be honest. I think the 0 to 7 is where we get a majority of the programming, and which is why being like a mindful parent and watching what we say around our kids is so important, because, and I was guilty of this. Oh, he doesn't know. He's not going to remember this. The mind remembers, right? He might not consciously remember, but if he were to go into hypnosis, I bet you my son could pull up shit from when he was very, very little. We all could. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to watch what we do, watch what we say, because they're always watching. And even if they're not going to tell us one day, oh, mom, but I remember when I was 2 years old and you said blah, 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 blah. It's ingrained in their mind and it is part of who they are. And it's part of how they have like formed their own identities. So parents, be very mindful of that.
And even what you say to your children at such young ages, even if you're
Totally.
saying that you think them that you're saying this with like endearment and love, it's like, no, like their brain is quite literally being developed. And also, you said 0 to 7. Also, the thoughts that you're having just as you're pregnant, or even if you're, trying to get pregnant, because that's what that shit fucked me up. I was just like, oh gosh, like there's pregnancy, this the process before, during, and then after is involving yourself and taking care of yourself, and like the way that your brain is forever changed as a female, and then obviously the brain that you are helping to nurture and develop for said child.
Well, let's take it further. And it's not just when you're in utero, but it's also what is being passed down to you genetically from your lineage. What did you bring with you from past lives, right? So, you guys, it can go from, there's a technique, and I don't know if we'll talk so much about it now, but there's a technique where you access your subconscious mind and you are asking, okay, I'm aware of this limiting beliefs, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And did this limiting belief occur? It's like pre-utero, in utero, or post-utero. So before you were born, while you were in the womb, or after you came out. And if it's pre-utero, was it generational? Was it a past life? Right? So it's coming with us from times that we're not even aware of.
It's fucking dumb.
So
I'm
dumb.
not bitter. So dumb. So stupid.
Dumb. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about like core beliefs and limiting beliefs, because limiting beliefs, I think, are spoken a lot about in healing work, right? I mean, how many times do we hear about limiting beliefs and being aware of limiting beliefs? Like, that's huge. I would say let's take it back and let's look at core beliefs, because I believe that core beliefs are what contribute to the limiting beliefs. And I'll give you an example. Do you know what the difference is?
Not the difference, but I have familiarity with the limiting.
Okay. So one of the things that we learn a lot about, if you're a clinician, so like myself, one of the techniques that was really big at my last place of work was cognitive behavioral therapy, so CBT. And so CBT talks a lot about core beliefs. And so there's so many different examples of core beliefs. So there could be a core belief of I'm unlovable, a core belief of I'm not good enough, a core belief of I'm worthless, a core belief of I'm stupid, right? So those are kind of like the big ones. From those core beliefs come the limiting beliefs. So if somebody has a core belief of I'm unlovable, they might have a limiting belief of I'm never going to find the relationship that I want. I'm never going to attract the kind of partner that I want, because they don't think that they're lovable. If somebody has a core belief, my biggest core belief is I'm not good enough. So that can come up in so many ways. So for me, and it's not just like, so with the unlovable one, it can be, I would say it's sometimes a little more related to like relationships, right? So it doesn't even have to be romantic relationships, but just in general, I'm unlovable. And so, my mom's never going to love me the way they love my brother. So it can kind of be, I think, in the context of that. With something like a core belief of I'm unworthy or I'm not good enough, that can get generalized to like every other area of life. So if for someone like me who has a core belief of I'm not good enough, I might think, oh, well, I'm not going to apply for that job because I'm never going to get it. Or I'm not going to try to make more money because I'm not worthy of making more money, right? If it's a core belief around worthiness. So it can kind of go in like I said, in all those different areas of life, depending on what the core belief is. So the core belief is more of like the I am fill in the blank. And then the limiting belief is where you generalize it to in all the other areas of life. Does
Okay.
that make
So it's
sense?
kind of like a result of how you're perceiving certain things to be true of yourself, and then it kind of just expands into different or set areas of life, and it holds you back.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if someone has, so you could have one core belief, and from that one core belief, you can have 20 limiting beliefs.
Okay.
And it
Yep.
isn't always going to be in the same area. Like I said, it can go into the area of schooling, job,
Mhm.
relationship,
Mhm.
just
Yep.
self-worth in general. So you
Yeah.
can have one kind of stem from all the others.
Yeah.
Does that
Okay.
make sense? Okay.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times we focus on what is the limiting belief. Well, let's also try to figure out what the core belief is. What's the main theme
Yeah.
that someone is struggling with? And where did that come from? And so a lot of a lot of that
Yep.
can be traced back to what our subconscious mind picked up when we were, again, either in utero, post utero, that 0 to 7 stage, or even that, 0 to 12, whatever it is. So I think from the ages of, I think they say it's like 0 to 7, children are just like in a walking theta state. So the theta state is the state that we are in right before we fall asleep at night, and right
Mhm.
before, or sorry, and then right after we wake up in the morning. So it's kind of that like groggy in between, and that is when your subconscious mind is most receptive to suggestions and information. So from 0 to 7, kids are just walking around like half asleep, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
they're picking up everything during that time, and that's where those beliefs really start to
Mhm.
become ingrained. And what? My mind went blank.
Ingrained. What's the? And there's a
I'm
word
like
for
a
it. There's a
walking,
verb.
talking subconscious mind right now.
No, like settled, like ingrained, settled, embedded. That same kind of thing as ingrained. It's
Yeah,
a
whatever. Yeah.
synonym.
So
Mhm.
they're just walking around getting all this information. Okay.
You're being
So that is,
programmed.
yeah, they're being programmed. So that is where these
Mhm.
core beliefs start to come from. That is where the limiting beliefs are
Yeah.
ultimately going to be generalized to later on in life, or even at that point. My little one has this thing that he does sometimes where if, and mind you, he doesn't even get in like trouble, right? I really try to talk to him about why certain things shouldn't be done, and he understands what the consequences are. Sometimes he knows if he's done something, he'll just come and tell me, like, don't give me my, screen time because I, I didn't do this. So he already kind of knows. But then sometimes when he's like really in his feels, he'll be like, I'm the worst kid ever. And I'm like, what? Like, no, you're not. You're not the worst kid ever. You're not the worst kid at all. You're an amazing kid. But he goes into this place and that really
Mhm.
worries me. I'm like, oh great. That's like
Yeah.
gonna be one of his like core beliefs. It's like, I'm an awful person.
Mhm.
So anyways, I'm doing a lot to try to
Not go
reprogram
in that
that.
direction. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that I was thinking about before we were going to be recording this episode was how the connection between like the subconscious mind and also like trauma responses that I see a lot in the work that I was doing, especially with adults. So if we think about the subconscious mind and how it's like, okay, these are the things that I believe, even though I'm not aware of them. So our subconscious mind is holding these beliefs that we're not conscious of, we're not aware of it, we're not walking around thinking these things. We're not really walking around thinking, I'm not good enough, but we're walking around thinking, oh, I can't do, oh, I'm not going to apply for that job because I don't know if I'm going to get it, right? That might be more of a conscious thought.
Mhm.
And a lot of times in therapy, what I would see was people were repeating a lot of the same patterns of behaviors and not understanding why and being so unhappy that they were repeating these behaviors. And
Mhm.
it's because it, it's so simple. It's because, well, that's what you're used to, that's what you've seen, and because you've seen that, you are going to repeat it
Yeah.
because it's familiar, right? So
Mhm. You see that with families, in particular, especially with like money's a great example of that.
totally, yeah.
Mhm.
And so I remember I had, a couple clients that were repeating a lot of the same relationship patterns, and they were like, I hate it, and I'm so upset. And when we looked at their childhood and the trauma that went on, they were like, Oh my gosh. So, and then that kind of messes with their head too, because they're like, so I'm doing this to myself. Like I'm choosing to repeat this. And it's like, well, yeah, but like you don't know any different, right? Your body, your nervous system is accustomed to feeling this way. And so you move towards what's familiar. And that's, that's why this is happening. So how do we break that? And I think, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I had this thought because it's like the familiarity, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I can't speak to the science behind it, but I am familiar with some of the terminology that it's the same neural pathways that keep you safe. Whereas, like, doing something different, you're thereby creating new neural pathways in the brain.
Hmm.
And that's actually what promotes, like, disrupting the limiting beliefs
Hmm.
and moving away from the core beliefs. And you're developing that self growth and finding new growth
Right.
within yourself. So, sorry, not to cut you off, but that came
No,
up.
no, no, it's fine. And how hard is it though to do something different than you've done before? Like just think about, okay, I want you to get dressed tomorrow and I want you to get dressed in the opposite way that you normally get dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's going to be really hard. You're going to have to be thinking about it. You're going to get all confused. You might just be like, oh, this is dumb. I'm wasting my time and I'm just going to do what I've always done. So it's not so easy to just, well, think differently and you'll do differently. It's so freaking hard.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing what you just heard and kind of understanding the difference between like maybe the core beliefs, the limiting beliefs, and understanding the role the subconscious mind plays, and then also understanding the role that maybe trauma plays in people repeating patterns. What was kind of coming up for you? Any thoughts? Any
Yeah, I had an example that came to mind, and I was just reflecting because I've been doing a lot of this, just like the subconscious reprogramming work, because I'm trying to be in a place where I'm manifesting more of the things that I want for myself. And I know that on a subconscious level, I have to be aligned and believe that I am capable of receiving that and worthy. And so for me, I'm just gonna, I guess the example that comes to mind might be dating. And so I know I'm walking into the season of like potential partnership and stuff, but I have to go back to believing maybe, or just acknowledging like why it hasn't worked out for me. And maybe like, maybe I'm the problem. I don't know. Right.
yes, Taylor Swift.
Right. Anti-hero song. So, but then I was thinking about my astrology chart and I was like, there's no way this isn't linked up. So I'm like, oh, I totally fucking had this passed on to me and agreed to this in this lifetime. But I remember when I was younger, and this had to been like in first grade. So, however old you are in first grade, like 5 or 6, right? And these
7.
boys,
Yeah, 7.
7? Okay, so 7. I remember there was this boy that always used to make fun of me just for being so short and tiny in my little uniform, Catholic schoolgirl, right? Like, I have the photo and
With your
everything,
long
and like,
skirt
yes, and my
and
long
your roller
hair,
backpacks. Remember
and
when
like
you
my
guys had
little
roller backpacks? You guys were such nerds.
And then what are they called? The bandanas, like the hairpiece that go from like ear to ear and like would pin the hair back. What is
Oh
that?
my gosh, I don't
You know
know.
what I'm
Was that
talking about, though, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
Okay.
pictures of that. Was that trendy or was that just
It was like I don't even know. They're
mom
coming
being all
back though.
Mexican? Anyway.
So, anyways, there was this boy, and he used to make so much fun of me, like so much fun of me, like would make fun of my teeth, my height, my appearance. And he used to tell me because people knew that I had a crush on the cute boy in class, and he was one of them, right? And he's like, he's never gonna like you, blah blah
Oh
blah,
my
right?
gosh.
He was such a fucking dick. He was such a dick to
He's
the
probably a dick
point.
now. He's probably like a very unhappy, dickish
Okay,
person.
so you know what's kind of wild? His wife and I have very similar features.
Oh,
So I'm
funny.
like, oh, well, I didn't realize this because that was his way of showing that he liked me, right? And
And
he's fucking boys.
that's so messed up. We talked about this before, that movie, He's Just Not That Into You. And at the
Ah,
beginning, the little girl's getting teased and the mom's like,
stupid.
oh, it's just because he likes you and how, right? So think about it. You're a walking, talking sponge at that time. And so
Ugh.
that's what you're throwing in the back of your mind. Oh, if
Mhm,
this person's mean to me, then they
mhm,
like me.
mhm. He was
Example of programming.
he was so mean to me. I remember I'd go home and I would like cry and I'd have to I think I told dad once, and dad being like, this was when like dad was like wearing his cowboy boots and like his cowboy hat, like his denim jeans. He went in and he told the boy, like literally, he did not give two shits about the parents. He's like, I don't even know what he said. I'll go ask him after because I'm sure he remembers. He knows exactly who it was too. And so, after that, I don't really remember. No, he still treated me like he was still an asshole, but he still kind of he watched himself a little bit more differently, a little bit more after that. And then I remember the boy that I had liked, which is funny because I think you're indirectly related to him, Nichole, because he's my
Oh.
best friend's husband's cousin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. So anyways,
Maybe.
he just got married, right? Anyways, so I ended up telling this boy, I was like maybe 2 years later, we were on the swing set at our little school, and I was like, I like you. And he was there, it was just the two of us. I could cry for little Gabby right now. And, and he was like, he just shrugged his like shoulders, and I was like, and that was it. He didn't like acknowledge me, like he didn't reciprocate it back or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, I ended up like going literally, we went to preschool together all the way through college. So like we ended up like staying friends and all the things. But the fact that it wasn't reciprocated back to me, I was like, oh my God. And it stayed with me because
Mm-hmm.
at that point, like I had like developed like, oh, guys are going to be assholes to me. I'm going to fight back. So now in dating as an adult, I'm like, oh, I've been in my masculine to protect me subconsciously because there's a safety thing involved and I don't allow
Oh,
myself
so
to be
glad you said
seen.
this, because this is what I didn't want to say to you the other day when we were recording the
It's
episode
safety.
of Energy and
Uh-huh.
Receiving, where I'm
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, homegirl, you're doing this to yourself. And that's what
It's
I kept to
safety.
myself. Oh, thank you.
No, and I know it. It's like it's actually kind of sad because that's part of the reason that I've leaned into my masculine side, and it's been a
It's a
struggle.
little shell. Your little outer shell.
And the other thing that didn't support me was my work environment because for a long period of time, almost 10 years, I would say, we're rounding up, I worked with nothing but men. And that environment required me to be in my masculine, to not live in my feminine. So now, after going to Hawaii, I'm like, fuck, like my body's showing signs of transitioning to the feminine, like how hard it is to like receive, like all the things that is the natural state of a woman to be in. I'm like, oh, like this is like I'm basically just reflecting on all of my shit. And when I was in meditation to reprogram my subconscious, this period of life came back because that's where it started. So it
Mm-hmm.
got started, it was developed in
Yeah,
like
probably like age 6 or
environments.
7. Yeah.
I remember the last guy I went on a date with, he was in the military and very structured. Like I've noticed that that's been very much like my pattern with the guys that I've dated. I'm like military uniform, some type of thing.
What
And
does
I
my
had,
husband always tell you, though?
oh, they're douchebags.
He's like, stay away from those guys. Yeah.
Oh, uh huh.
He's like,
Well,
stay
he
away
said
from
that
the
about
firemen, the military guys,
the
the
NFL
art,
guys.
the football guys,
Uh
and
huh.
the guitar players.
Yeah, the guitar player was the most recent.
He's like,
Anyways,
all of them.
so
Stay away from
all
them.
of them. I don't know what I'm going to end up with because I don't know what else is out there. But anyways, all this to say, um, that they came up. I was on a date with him, and it was like the second or third date, and I was so in my masculine, like, and I realized I caught myself. I switched it because he was reflecting back because he's obviously very much in his masculine, just like given the work that he does and like just how sure of himself that he was at the time. I don't know. I mean, I think he's married now, and I wish him the best. He was a great guy. But I like it was almost kind of like me comparing the size of like my fake penis to his
Yeah,
real penis. And I was
totally.
like, "Oh my
And do you
gosh."
think
And
guys
so when
like
I
that?
realized that
And it's
mid-date
not.
and flipped it,
Yeah.
it ended up being like a fantastic date. And I was just like, "Oh, this is what it's like to be in the feminine." But I got this when I was a fucking first grader.
Right.
And I'm like, "You fucking guys, you suck. You all suck." Not
Right.
all of you, but
Most of
you
them.
know what I mean. Mhm.
Not the ones that listen to this one.
No, we love you guys.
But think about it. So what did that ingrain in your mind as 7-year-old little Gabby? It ingrained that
It's
it's
not safe
not
to be
safe.
seen.
It's not
Mhm.
safe to be seen. It's not
Mhm.
safe to put it out there. It's not safe to let
Mhm.
somebody know that I like them.
Mhm.
And that is typically more of like a feminine, I would say, quality,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so what did you do instead? Well, you like doubled down and you went the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And that has really kind of hindered you in trying to bring in the kind of partnership that you want to bring in.
Yeah, and it's so funny because that's where my wounding is in my birth chart. Believe it or not, it's
Mm,
safety. So it does show up from an astrology perspective. I wouldn't say always, but for me, it definitely does. And now trying to move away from it, I'm just like literally having to reprogram my brain.
right.
And it
Yeah.
sucks, guys. It's not fun, nor is
It's
it quick.
not, and it's hard. It's not quick, and it's
Mhm.
hard, and it's a lot of work, and it is so uncomfortable. But you guys, it is filled with the biggest aha moments
Yeah.
that when you get them, you're like, oh my gosh, like this makes so much sense.
Hmm.
And it is like it's really cool when it happens when you're able to get those aha moments. And so I was
Yeah.
thinking about it last night because we had decided, I think, yesterday to record this episode.
Yeah.
And last night I was home working on stuff.
Mhm.
And so my mind has just been kind of really focused on all of this. So I was trying to go to bed, but I was still thinking about it. And one of the things that kind of came up for me, because so we've really been kind of highlighting the negative parts of the subconscious, programming and kind of the negatives that can come from it. But I want to highlight maybe something different and a positive
Well, is there
because we're such
ever a
downers.
positive right, but is there ever a positive reason as to why we develop these core beliefs? Like, I don't know that I've had an example of that. At least maybe
No,
not one come to my mind at this time.
maybe not, but I'm going to kind of share an example for me. So
Okay.
I've talked about it a little before, right? I didn't grow up in like the greatest environment. I didn't have,
Yeah.
great examples. It was like not great. And I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I realized it. I don't know. I don't even know if I did or not. But one of the things that I never like held on to or believed was that okay, like this is how my life is going to be, which I
Yeah.
I probably should have, right? I probably should have had this subconscious
I love that
programming.
you just said that because that is so true. You've always wanted to break that mold and even more so once you became a mother. So I definitely agree with that.
Right. And so I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but my brother's dad, who's like the nicest freaking human in the world.
Guys, just so I don't know if we need to like share the backstory at some point when it makes
Ugh,
sense
it's
too, so
just so much
people
work. Yeah.
understand. I know it's so much work, but her brother actually has the same last name as us, our maiden name, which is wild.
Hmm.
And
And our fathers are not related,
no,
but
it's a very
my
uncommon
God, are
last
they
name
cut from
too,
the same cloth? When
and
you
they get
say,
along. Yeah,
like, my mom definitely had a type. She was into like cowboy boots and cowboy hats and short shorts
yeah.
and men with the same last name. Anyway, so my brother's dad is the nicest human you could ever meet.
Hmm.
He's so sweet. He's so soft spoken. He's great. And he, watched me grow up and he kind of saw the decline of like my mom and all of that stuff and,
Yeah.
everything that happened when we were younger. My brother was a baby. And he had told me when I graduated from college, I think, how him and his family, and it wasn't said in a mean way, it was more said in a sense of like pride and like, I'm so like happy for you. But he had told me how they expected me to become pregnant in high school, drop out, and become a welfare mom. And so the fact that I like didn't, the fact that I kind
Hmm.
of, pushed through despite like all the shit that I went through.
Hmm.
And, I realized that I, in my mind, never, thank God, subscribed to the idea of, oh, okay, like this is just what you do. Like you get pregnant and you start doing drugs in your fucking adulthood and you never make anything of your life. Like I was just
Hmm.
like, no, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going
Hmm.
to like make something of myself. And I never, thank God, let that
Hmm.
part of like what I saw
Hmm.
growing up, like get so ingrained in my head that's just what I thought.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you think that that's a rebel in you? Because I feel like in different
Oh,
ways, yeah, like that's your version of fighting, and that was like my version of fighting back. And as a result, like your life, you are obviously none of that. I mean, you didn't get pregnant until you're like mid to late 30s.
yeah, early 30s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
early 30s. And then for me, like as a result of like fighting against the guys and just pushing back,
maybe.
my masculine's probably too strong, and I need that to be mirrored in a partner.
I love that idea of being a rebel.
It's
Yeah, fuck
rebel.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
that rebel in me, fucking rebel spirit. Yeah, so anyway, so that was kind of the idea that I had where it's like, oh, here's one time where like the programming didn't go the way it maybe could have gone or like should have gone. And I kind of did the exact opposite, but like in a good way, right? And in not affecting me in a detrimental way where a lot of this programming kind of does affect us in a not
Yeah.
so great positive way.
I think your soul, like, that's where I'm just like, oh my gosh, did our soul like agree to this? Because I could totally be like, yeah, like I could totally see, sorry, your soul coming in and being like, we're not doing this. We are breaking the pattern. This is what I agree to. This is what I don't agree to. And that's that, motherfuckers.
Totally, because I'm the only
Hmm.
one in my family that has like done.
Gone to school.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, literally.
And you guys, and not that like school is, the end all be all or like the
It's
best
not,
thing, but
no.
it is something that, especially, 10, 15, 20 years ago, was a really big deal. Like, you go to college and you do these things, and maybe it's not so much now. I would say it's
But
definitely less than it is 20 years ago.
it's also in our culture too. Like in our culture, it was a really big thing,
Mhm.
especially 10 to 15 years ago for sure. I agree with that.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, again, maybe not now, but back then it was a pretty big deal. So, yeah, so anyway, so those are just some of the thoughts that I had about like the programming, and maybe the programming not always being negative, where sometimes it can
Hmm.
be really positive. And for
Hmm.
some people, think about people that just make the best out of life and that are, multimillionaires or billionaires, right? Think of like the Jeff Bezos of the world. Do you think they have these like limiting beliefs of, I don't deserve this money, or I don't, deserve this wealth? No. Some people have really strong senses of who they are and think that they are worthy of everything that they want. And those are the people that get it. And
Hmm.
whether they're good people or not, it doesn't matter. It's what they believe. And because they believe it, they're able to bring it to life.
Yeah, and I think that's the fine line of like, when is it, and this is definitely a piece that I don't think I can speak to perfectly, but like the ego comes in, and then like the fine line of the ego, and then what that looks like in terms of you exhibiting arrogance versus confidence. So that's all in relation to like conscious brain, the subconscious brain, your ego, your soul, your higher self, all the things.
I remember hearing on the expanded podcast, like Lacey talking about an ex that she dated, and how, they were both kind of after the same things, like back when she was trying to be like an actress and
Yes.
model. And she
Yes.
was talking about this man that she dated and how he got all of the things that she wanted so easily. And that's when she like kind of realized, oh, he didn't have these like limiting beliefs or these thoughts of, I don't deserve this and I have to work extra hard. He just thought, oh, yeah, well, like I want it and I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And he did, right? And so she said that was a really big eye opener for her to see that, oh, okay, like I don't have to, or if I like really believe that I'm worthy of something, I can have it. It doesn't matter how good I am. Like, it's, do I believe that I can have it and it's for me?
Yeah. And then if you want to get weird, as we do on this podcast,
How weird do you want to get?
well, then that's where the chakras come into play, because your solar plexus is the chakra that represents whether or not you're worthy of, you know, receiving said things that you're
Mm-hmm.
striving and manifesting. And that's why it's so important. And that's why it is the chakra that's right there on our core. And it's arguably like one of the main energetic
Yeah.
centers needed. So, yeah.
Okay, so now you know how these thoughts came to be and how they were programmed, and so now what? Okay, how do you reprogram them? How do you make these changes? And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between like subconscious reprogramming versus like maybe something like traditional therapy. And I'll use CBT as an example because that's the one that I'm most trained and like experienced in.
Can you
So,
explain what CBT is? Like the abbreviation of it?
yeah, I think I did earlier, but I'll do it again.
Okay.
So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
What its kind of premise is, how you think affects the way you feel, and how you feel affects what you do, and what you do affects how you think, right? So it goes in a circle, but it's basically, you think this, you feel this, and then you do this, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So with subconscious reprogramming, again, it's going to work below the surface of your consciousness, right? Subconscious, below it, under it. Cognitive behavioral therapy is working at the conscious level. And so I think that it's a great technique. I think it's evidence based. It's one of like the really good. It yields a lot of really good results. However, you're only working on the conscious level. which I think is why, what?
Well, do you remember when I asked you, I was like, hey, like, do you think you've gotten more out of this work than you did your therapy? And I think
Mm-hmm.
you're going right into that because,
No, totally. Yeah.
well, do you remember when like you first called me and you were like, I just don't understand like how therapy, like people are doing this without having like their licenses and like giving advice and not blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what it was, but I was just like, I
Mm-hmm.
think she just has to try it. And this is kind of like bringing it all back, but I'm so glad because you bridge both worlds. You legit have the
Right.
licenses to do that.
Yeah. So when I first started doing this work, and I still do get triggered to a sense
Mm-hmm.
when I see a lot of people that are, trying to, and again, it's not because they're trying to help people, but I think because I did so much studying and work and, it was a process to be
That's
able to
fucking
do it.
fair to say. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true.
At the same time, though, I don't think it makes them any less qualified. I think some of the people that are doing this work are freaking amazing.
Uh-huh.
But for me, I think it was probably like an ego thing in the beginning, like fuck, I spent all that time and all that
All that
money,
money.
and this other person's over here doing this shit that I'm fucking doing, and they're making a lot more money than I did, and they didn't have to do half the shit I have to do. So I think it was more of an ego thing.
Totally.
But I think that the difference is the subconscious reprogramming is working under the conscious level. The CBT is working at the conscious level. So you're only going to make so many changes. So again, how can you do the two? And I think it's really
Yeah.
important to try to do them together. And I've said that before, and I still believe that. I still believe that if you're going to be going to therapy, it's also maybe important for you to do this kind of extra deeper work, and that could look like journaling or meditation, right? It doesn't have to be anything super big and crazy. And I think that if you're jumping into spirituality work for the healing, that you should also have the support of a professional to help guide you along, because the things that we remember consciously that maybe are very uncomfortable can come up. And do you have somebody there to support you when those big heavy things come up also?
Yeah.
So that's what I think that the differences are. So where CBT was effective, I think CBT could be more effective if someone's going to therapy if they're also doing this subconscious work on the back end.
Yeah.
And I think it could speed things up. And not that we want people to heal super quickly, because maybe their nervous system can't tolerate that, like it's not regulated for that, but we want people to heal. So how can they do the two together?
Mm-hmm. And that's why this work isn't meant to be done overnight. It does take time. Like, isn't something you're going to heal right away. And you can't, it does. And you can't bypass it either.
No. And so there's different kinds of reprogramming techniques that I think would be really helpful for people if they're maybe just getting started, or if they're just interested in general of like, okay, I've been doing this, but like I kind of feel like I need a little bit more. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of work with this. Ew, what was that?
My
Why'd you
element,
make a face though? You were like, ugh.
I don't want it to drop and make a noise.
Oh, it died. It does. Every time something goes like this, I have to take it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so here are some of the things that you can do if you're interested in kind of figuring out like what the heck is going on to begin with. Okay, so I would say the two things, my top three, I would say intro, kind of like baby steps into reprogramming and learning, are going to be in no particular order. I'm going to say journaling, meditation, and affirmations. Those I think are going to be probably the most like beginner friendly way to jump into it. So maybe you are doing meditation, and you guys, this doesn't have to be, 30, 45 minutes of meditation. Start off with like 3 minutes a day. And I need to practice what I preach. And I have been trying to do a little bit better of like, okay, let me just do 5 minutes here and there. Start off for like 3 minutes, right? We all have 3 minutes. If we say we don't have 3 minutes, we're fucking lying. So start off with like 3 minutes a day. Start off with 3 minutes, not even a day. Start off with like 3 minutes, 4 days a week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that? Okay. I did that. Try that for 2 weeks. Okay. Did it feel easier week 2? Okay, cool. You know what? Now I'm going to do 5 days a week. And maybe in a couple weeks, I'm going to up it to 5 minutes. Like play around with it. Play around with either how many minutes you're doing it, or play around with throwing in an extra day. And just kind of getting your mind to kind of quiet a little bit and to still and see what comes in, see what kind of pops up in your mind. And then with that, you can journal whatever came up for you while you were meditating. I have a journal that I really like. I think it's called Soul Therapy, and we can link it here. And that was like a really good beginner journal. I think I've outgrown it. I haven't touched it in a while, but it is really good to help you just kind of get in the habit of like taking some time to reflect on whatever the question is. And they're not very deep questions, which is why I think I've kind of outgrown it. But it was a really fun way to just kind of get used to like putting my thoughts on paper. Because journaling doesn't have to be, like, dear journal, today I went to work and then I came home and it was just a regular day. Like, it doesn't have to be journaling what your day looked like, but really journaling those like deeper things. What came up for you today that lit you up? Why do you think it lit you up? And then what came up for you today that was a little more challenging, and why do you think it was challenging?
Yeah.
And then you can throw in there some affirmations to just kind of get you in the habit of taking in more like positivity and more encouraging type of like information and content.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I have a download for you, but I'll share after we record.
Okay. So I would say those would probably be the top 3 to kind of like dip your toes in. Okay. And then there's going to be some other ones that some of these might require a little more time, a little more effort, a little more resources and finances, but one of them is going to be something like hypnosis. So working with somebody who can hypnotize you to access your subconscious mind. That's what hypnosis is. Hypnosis is working at the theta brainwave state. So again, the brainwave state that we are at first thing in the morning when we wake up and right before we fall asleep. That is where our subconscious mind is most active, most receptive. That's where we're going to get most of the information that is going to help us. So they have hypnoses sometimes like on YouTube. Be very cautious and weary of like what you're listening to and whose information you're taking in. Because there have been cases in the past where people were not doing the greatest things on some of these videos. So I really like the TBM, the To Be Magnetic app, because I really like the deep imaginings they have. They are a little bit longer. Sometimes they're a little too long for my taste, where it's hard for me to sit there for, 25, 30 minutes, even though maybe that's what I need. But if I'm trying to fit it in a work day, it's not always ideal. Or again, work with an actual person who is certified in hypnosis or is trained in hypnosis that you can see, once a month or once every few months or whatever. So that might be something that requires more time and resources.
Yeah. I had this thought about music because, what you were saying about listening to certain things on YouTube, because there are subliminal messages that are shared. Oh, okay. Well, there's some certain artists that do that. So Beyonce is one of them. I'm just saying, be careful what you listen to. Yeah.
Let's see. And then another one is going to be EFT, so emotional freedom technique. So that's the tapping, and that's something that I think I'm going to do a training over the summer. Yeah, I have the course. I just haven't jumped into it, but I have it. So I'm hoping to be able to make use of that soon. There's a really good YouTube channel on YouTube. There's a really good channel on YouTube that we'll share in the show notes. It's called, I think it's Tapping with Brad. It's Brad Yates. And he has so many videos. He's been doing it for like 11, 12 years before YouTube was popular. So you can go back and find something in there for pretty much anything that you need. And that's a little bit more timely, I guess, where, plan to spend anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes on a tapping video than, maybe doing like a 3 to 5 minute meditation. So anyways, again, some of these require a little more. Another thing could be there's a technique called rapid resolution therapy, and I'm so fascinated by it. I really want to do a session. I need to wait. But that is also, it's really interesting. I first came across it when I was doing MBA, And at first I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is so dumb. I don't get it. And it wasn't until someone explained to me, no, it's not supposed to make sense because it's speaking to your subconscious mind. And once I realized that and like listened to it again, I was like, oh my God, this is so fascinating. And it works like that. It works so quickly. So that could be something else that maybe you look into finding a trained, I don't know what they call them. I don't think they call them therapists.
Practitioner?
Practitioner. Where you can
Yeah.
find a practitioner that you can work with.
That one was fun because I remember you sent that to me one time. We listened to the same thing. I was like, yeah, I can hear this. And you're like, I can't hear this. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh
Like,
no,
I
that's
didn't even know
something
that was a
else.
thing. Oh,
That was a
okay.
hit. That was a hypnosis.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know,
So, like,
rapid
yeah.
resolution therapy is it's like saying things that don't make sense and you're like, what? But then when you try to access the feeling again, so like I went in there with like the feeling of anxiety. When I try to access the feeling of anxiety after, I couldn't. So it's really interesting. It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like something that's going to take more time, take more resources. And then one of the other ones that isn't going to be very well, it might be time intensive, is going to be subliminals. And so these are probably my favorite because they don't require a lot from you, but it does require you to be very mindful of what information you're taking in and where you're getting it from, because like Gabby was saying, a lot of times subliminal messaging can be put in video form. So I think they said like back in the, oh gosh, it might have been like the 80s or 90s, they were doing a lot of like subliminal messaging at like movie theaters, right? So to help drive the sales of like popcorn and Coca-Cola, right? So putting in flashes of like videos like, oh, I kind of want this now, and that's like one way that it was being used. A lot of times it can be used in audio format. So the way it works is the way it works is that it's working again under the threshold of consciousness. So think about like a dog whistle. Like we can't hear a dog whistle the way a dog can hear the whistle. It's the same thing with the subliminals. We're not consciously hearing it, but our subconscious mind, because it's always on, it's picking up the information even when you're not. So the cool thing about it is you can listen to it when you're getting ready. You can listen to it when you're exercising. You can listen to it when you're sleeping and know that like maybe you don't hear the messages, which again is why it's so important to make sure you know where you're getting it from. So maybe you don't consciously hear them, but like your mind is picking it up while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
And so I think those like affirmations are helpful. I personally don't love them on their own because again, our conscious mind can block them. So if you're sitting there saying like, I'm confident and, you know, I'm capable of doing these great things, but you don't believe it, your conscious mind is going to be like, no, you're not. And you're not going to take those affirmations in, and you're not going to believe it, and you're not going to make those changes. So I think affirmations should probably be paired with subliminals for like the best effect. And those are kind of the main ones that I have for reprogramming.
I need you to make subliminals so I can reprogram limiting beliefs, core beliefs. Please and thank you.
Well, you're in luck because I am. So one of the things that I've been working on is creating kind of a bundle with all of these, well, not all of these, but some of these techniques. So I'm not trained in hypnosis yet, so I can't offer any hypnosis type of work. I haven't done the EFT training yet, so I don't feel comfortable offering that yet. So in the meantime, though, I am putting together a bundle of meditations, affirmations, and subliminal audios together to help support people, especially if they're new to it. So it's not ready to go as of recording, but it has to be ready to go by the time of this episode drops. So keep an eye out for that. I think I'm probably going to be releasing it in a few days if I haven't already released it by the time this episode comes out. And I'm going to do a birthday special for it. So it's going to be $22 for 22. I don't know what the price is going to be after. And I don't know how long I'm going to keep it open for. Maybe just through the end of the birthday month. I'm not sure, guys. Check in. But it's going to be really helping you get into the habit of trying to access your mind and being more aware of what is in your subconscious mind. And again, that's going to be through the meditation and then through the affirmation paired with the subliminal. And I think I'm going to throw some journaling questions in there too.
Yep. I love it.
And then eventually I would like to have different bundles based on what people are telling me they need. So does somebody need something to help support them through the loss of a relationship? Do my working parents or just my parents in general that are feeling overwhelmed, or not even parents, just adults in general, do you need some kind of stress management support? Do we have college students that are feeling overwhelmed that need some kind of extra support? So I think eventually I'm going to make different packages to support different people and the needs that are kind of coming up. So based on the feedback I get and what people are looking for.
If you have had a reading with me and I have suggested the TBM work and you looking into their podcast or anything related to that world, I would definitely check this offering out because this is something that's going to pair very well with it. So,
yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway, any other thoughts?
I love this episode.
Yeah, me too.
Take care of your brains, guys. It's important.
Take care of your brains. Watch what you say around the littles because even though we think they're not going to remember, they remember. They pick up everything and they are storing that information for down the road. And that's going to shape how they feel about themselves, whether or not you think they remember or not. It's going to shape the way that they see themselves and see the world around them. The world is going to fuck up our kids. Let's not fuck them up before the world does. Let's try really hard to nurture them and love them and keep them safe. So that way, when the world does do its damage to them, they have strong support system, whether that's internal support or external support from family to get through those things.
I'm glad you said that because I'm not a mom yet, but I was totally thinking that because I had a conversation with a girlfriend. No, I was with talking to our esthetician. And I was like, isn't it so interesting when you're in high school and you're going through your shit and you're just kind of seeing all the kids around you and you're wondering why they're acting out. And now as an adult, you can see that, oh, it was their fucked up parents and how shitty it was at their home space. And so it just makes me wonder, I'm just oh my gosh, the patterns really do pass on through generations if not addressed. And you are a product of your environment in any environment, whether that's home, work, friendships, familial. So
last story before you pull this card, because this just happened on Friday. You guys, my son broke my fucking heart on Friday.
Oh, what?
Okay. He needed to turn something in. He asked me to leave a post-it on his school iPad so that he remembered to do it. Okay, great. So I write his little note, don't forget to turn in your permission slip. And at the bottom of the post-it note, I wrote, I love you. I put it on his iPad. He came to me in the morning and he's looking at it and he looked very concerned. And he's like, I just think that if my friends see this, they're going to say, hey, yo. And I was like, what? What does that mean? He goes, well, I think when they see this, and he pointed to I love you. And I think they're going to say something. I said, oh, they're going to tease you? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And I said, okay. He's like, can you write me another note? He wanted me to write him another note that didn't say I love you on it because he thought that his friends were going to make fun of him. So then I had a visceral reaction to it.
Did you cry?
No, but the wind got knocked out of my chest. Even thinking about it, I can feel it. And I got so mad. I told my husband, because these freaking parents, don't love their kids. These kids, not all of them, right? But for the kids that don't get that, then they're going to make fun of other kids whose parents love them. And part of me wants to fight their parents. And then the other part of me wants to just hug and love on all the kids. So anyway.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Being a parent's emotionally abusive.
It is.
I'm this world's emotionally abusive, especially for cancers.
He threw that post-it in the note, or he threw the post-it in the trash, and it
stabbed your heart.
Stabbed my heart, and I had to write him a new one. And I couldn't say that I loved him on it because he was embarrassed.
He won't even remember that. There's a chance he won't remember this.
Nope, but I will.
You will.
And I'll remind him of it every year.
said, just to point this out, guys, I think the world is especially emotionally abusive for water signs because the baby is a Scorpio. So,
Oh, I love him. And then his dad sent me something, and I didn't see what it was, but it was like cancer. It's something about a cancer, and I'm like reading it, and I was like, oh, I feel like very personally attacked. And he's like, no, that's his. It was like his moon sign or something.
mhm.
And I was like, oh, I still feel attacked. Like it felt so spot on.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, my poor baby has all of this too.
Uh-huh.
That's why we're made for each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, lots to sit with, guys. Let us know what you thought about this episode. I feel like there's a lot of like aha moments coming your way, if not already. But we would love to hear from you. Send us a DM or an email. I'm going to do the card pull today, and it will be linked in the show notes. It is the Chakra Wisdom Oracle cards by Tori Hartman. I'm showing a picture of it here if you're watching the YouTube. And so, yeah, it's a really cool deck. There's multiple cards here, almost 50. There's 49, but the cards are in the colors of the different chakras. And then there's one that's just neutral, which is gray, and that speaks to just like soul energy. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a card for this episode to wrap up.
I hope you pull a root card or a
solar plexus.
Solar plexus.
Oh,
I don't know. I feel like.
Okay, we're going to redo that. So,
do the stuff what we want.
That's not what we want.
What do spiritual girlies do when they don't get the card that they want? They repull.
Okay, I can't. It's double. It's two
sacrals.
Two sacrals. So, all right. The first one, which I think I'm just going to share this one, guys. It's very fitting. It is the service card. So, what's your take on that, Nichole? Because I have thoughts. Service, doing the fucking work, paying off for yourself, taking care of your brain, making sure that you're taking care of your children's well-being by way of doing this work. But this card, I'm not as familiar with this deck, guys, but I do really love it. It was one of the first decks that I got. It speaks to, are you seeing your life as it really is? Though we may wish things to be different, we often just create what we need. This is an opportunity to look at where you are today, give up what you think you deserve, and start being of service.
I
feel like that's very fitting. Yeah. The affirmation. I attract to you whatever you desire if you give up your desire. Well, it's talking about manifestation, attraction, abundance, and it all stems from the subconscious, baby. So,
yeah.
anyways.
So one of the things that I want you guys to also kind of take away from this isn't a manifestation episode. We're not manifestation coaches or teachers or anything like that. But one of the big things that I've really realized is manifestation comes from the subconscious mind. It doesn't come from doing things like the 3-6-9 method or the 5-5-5. Like, it doesn't come from any of that. It comes from, what do I believe for myself? What do I believe I'm worthy of receiving? That's where the real manifestation work comes from.
Yeah. Also, Catherine Zankina, manifestation babe herself, will you come on our podcast? Please and thank you.
We're working our way up. I'm gonna manifest first someone else. Okay.
All right. Well,
all right.
I love this episode. Until next time, guys.
I hope you guys loved it too.
Okay.
Don't forget to wish us happy birthday in 4 days.
Hey.
Okay. We'll receive whatever you guys want to send us. My Venmo is. I don't even know what my Venmo is.
Anyway. I don't really use it. Yeah.
I don't use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. See ya.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.